It's said that body language speaks volumes. How a person presents themselves is often at least as valuable as the words they use. This is as true in church as in general life. Those who attend a Christian act of worship may find themselves being asked to stand, or sit, or maybe even kneel at different times during the service. So why do we use different body language like this in liturgy? The posture most associated with places of worship is kneeling, although this is something we do rather less than earlier generations. Kneeling for some feels too conspicuously religious, or frankly, just isn't very comfortable. Nonetheless, kneeling is an important physical expression of our approach towards God. It reflects the humility with which we should come before him, especially when asking for his help or when we're saying sorry. Instead of kneeling, modern expectations dictate that we now do rather more sitting in church than our grandparents did. Many churches have discussions about the relative merits of pews or chairs. Either way, seating allows us to relax and to reflect in worship, for example, when listening to the Bible or to a sermon. Standing is the third important posture in worship. The Bible talks about those with pure hearts standing in God's presence, and about the boldness of Christians to come before God because of their faith in Jesus. Passages like these from the Psalms and Ephesians underpin why we stand in worship. We stand when we are proclaiming truths, for example, singing hymns or reciting the expression of faith, the Creed. So standing in worship is about confidence and declaration. Worshippers did rather a lot of standing when this cathedral was first built, because medieval churches had no chairs or pews. The only seating available was this stone plinth around the edge of the walls. The technical architectural term for this plinth is stylobate. I'm told that the origin of the phrase about something or someone going to the wall comes from the time when the elderly or infirm would sit on the stylobate. They were unable to stand for long periods during worship, and so they went to the wall to rest. For those who did go to the wall, that stone-cold stylobate must still have been pretty hard and chilly. So let's turn aside now and examine a creative solution which is both practical and informative. I'm joined here in the morning chapel by Beatrice King. Beatrice is an expert in needlework, and she's been doing lots of repairs and maintenance on a particularly historic set of seat cushions which line the stylobate here in the morning chapel. Beatrice, thank you for all that you've been doing here. Can you perhaps start by sharing a little about the history of this unique set of cushions?
This set of cushions is part of 27 which were designed to illustrate the history of the cathedral. We are fortunate that we have found 22 of them. We are still looking for the other 5. 15 were done in the 1950s, and they are recognisable by their uniform blue background and size, and the other 7 that we have so far found were done about 10 years after that. I'm grateful to a grant from the Friends who enabled me to restore those first 15 cushions.
Thank you. The Friends of Salisbury Cathedral there, whose work are dedicated to supporting the historic fabric, not just cloth fabric, material fabric, the whole of the building here. Now, there's a huge amount going on in these cushions, isn't there, Beatrice? Can you perhaps talk us through some of the signs and symbols, and perhaps any favourites which you have?
Right. Well, I shall start with my favourite, which I think is this one. This is one that shows the mason's marks. So this celebrates the people who actually did the work the masons, the glaziers, the carpenters, the people whose names we might not know, but they were the ones who did the building. And in terms of the history, I like this one, which depicts Ella, Countess of Salisbury. She was a remarkable woman, one of the most important women, I think, of the Middle Ages. And she's the only woman depicted in these cushions. She was Countess of Salisbury in her own right. She was one of those who laid the foundation stones of the cathedral in 1220. Her husband was William Longspay, who was another important person concerned with the foundation of the cathedral. Moving on, I also like this cushion, which celebrates Bishop Seth Ward, who was bishop here at the Restoration. He did a lot of work restoring the damage done during the Commonwealth, when of course there was no bishop. He was an interesting person. He was a founder member of the Royal Society, and in fact he wrote a book on the planets, which you can see referred to here and here. One of his pupils was Christopher Wren, and as we know, Christopher Wren did a lot of work on the cathedral himself, on the spire and building the Matron's College, which you can see illustrated here.
Wonderful selection, thank you. And just in terms of the mechanics of what you've been repairing, Beatrice, can you talk us through what you've done to return these to their former glory?
When I first saw these cushions, they were a sad bunch. They were flat or they were lumpy, and usually a bit of both. So I needed to take them apart and see what was in the middle and what I needed to do to get them back to their full glory. When I opened them up, they were full of perished latex, which is a horrible material to work with. It's very dusty. It goes to a horrible yellow colour, which stains everything. So I sat out in the garden with a mask on and removed them. They were also very dirty, so I washed them very carefully and did the minor repairs necessary on the embroidery. And they are restuffed with foam, upholstery foam, which is probably a much more suitable material. And it was thanks to a grant from the Friends that this was possible.
Thank you for undertaking such a fantastic restoration job here. We're really grateful for your skills. One of the many volunteers that support the work of the cathedral in so many different ways. We've only had a chance to have a little snapshot at these in this video. If I wanted to find out more information about the details, perhaps some of the signs and symbols in them, where should I turn?
At the moment, I think the best place to look is if you ask one of the guides, and they should have a list with more of the details, and they should be able to help you.
Fantastic. Beatrice, thank you again for sharing a little bit of the story of these seat cushions and helping us to reflect more deeply about their role in the story of this place, but also helping us to think about the different postures which we assume in worship, whether we come before God standing, sitting or kneeling, reflects what we want to say to God and how we come before him when we come into a church building and in worship.